Right now, two of the world's biggest economies, the EU and India, are hammering out a massive trade deal. But here's the thing, this isn't just about money. This is a deal that could reshape global commerce, make fortunes, and, as we're about to see, potentially put millions of lives on the line. So, what's really going on here?
People are calling it the mother of all trade deals. And that's not just hype, you know? That quote comes straight from a financial readings agency. So what makes this agreement so massive? Let's break down what's actually on the table. Okay, so before we dive into all the high-stakes drama, let's just get the basics straight. What on earth is a free trade agreement, or an FTA? Well, in simple terms, it's a deal where countries agree to lower or just get rid of taxes. We call them tariffs on stuff they trade with each other. The whole point? Make it cheaper to buy and sell across borders, and hopefully give both economies a nice boost. And that economic boost is exactly where this story kicks off. For the people pushing this deal, we're not just talking about a little bump in the economy, we're talking about a potential gold rush. Let's take a look at why. First off, you gotta get your head around the sheer size of the prize here. The EU, they are the single biggest market for apparel on the entire planet, buying up 18% of all the clothes sold in the world. So for a manufacturing powerhouse like India, getting better access to a market this huge would be an absolute game changer. And we can actually put a number on that. We're talking about a potential $4.5 billion boost in exports every single year. And that's just for one industry, just for ready-made garments. That's a massive shot in the arm for their economy. So how would they pull that off? Well, it all comes down to competition. This deal would basically give Indian exporters a 12% duty advantage over their biggest rival, China. All of a sudden, Indian-made stuff gets a whole lot cheaper and way more attractive for anyone buying in Europe. And the result? It could be huge. With that advantage, India could nearly double its share of the EU's garment market, jumping from around 5% to almost 9%. That's a super clear path to some serious economic growth. But hold on, it's not just about t-shirts and jeans. The deal would also mean cheaper European goods coming into India. Think cars, machinery, you name it. And it's not even just about stuff. The agreement's got this landmark mobility pact baked in, which is a fancy way of saying it'll be way easier for people to travel back and forth, with fast-track visas for students, researchers, and other skilled workers. Okay, so more jobs, cheaper stuff, easier travel. Sounds pretty great, right? A total win-win. But what if there's a catch, a really big hidden cost to all this economic opportunity? Because, yeah, on the flip side of this whole debate, you've got global health advocates, and they are seriously sounding the alarm. They're worried this deal could put one of India's most critical global roles at risk, its status as the pharmacy of the world. And look, that's not just a fancy title. It's the real deal. For decades, India has been the #1 source for affordable, generic medicines. These are the life-saving drugs that so many countries across the developing world count on to fight, well, everything from HIV to cancer. Just to give you an idea of the scale here, get this. A whopping 80% of all AIDS medicines used in donor-funded programs around the world come from Indian manufacturers. India's ability to produce these low-cost generics is quite literally a lifeline for millions and millions of people. And that's the fear. Public health organizations got their hands on leaked drafts of the trade deal, and their conclusion is blunt. They believe the rules hidden in the fine print could cripple India's ability to produce these medicines, endangering access for the world's most vulnerable people. And we're not talking about some fringe groups here. The organizations raising the alarm are huge, respected, global players. We're talking about Médecins Sans Frontières, you probably know them as Doctors Without Borders, and Oxfam. They're leading the charge, warning that the deal, as it's written right now, puts corporate profits way ahead of public health. So how can a trade deal about tariffs on clothes and cars have such a dramatic impact on life-saving medicine? Well, as they always say, the devil is in the details. Let's decode the fine print at the heart of this huge disagreement. All right, here's the core of the conflict. The EU wants to classify intellectual property, things like drug patents, as a protected financial investment. Health advocates, on the other hand, are afraid this would stop governments from doing what they need to do to protect public health, for instance, breaking a patent to produce cheaper generic drugs during a crisis. The enforcement mechanism for this is a really controversial system called Investor-State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS.
In simple terms, it gives foreign companies the power to sue entire countries, not in a normal court, but in a special private tribunal, if they feel a new law or regulation is hurting their bottom line. And listen, this isn't some crazy hypothetical. It has happened before. When Uruguay passed a law requiring bigger health warnings on cigarette packs, the tobacco giant Philip Morris used one of these ISDS clauses to sue the entire country. Their argument? That the public health law was harming their trademark investment. And that's exactly what health experts are afraid of here. The key sticking points in the draft EU-India deal are these very provisions, defining patents as an investment, having rules against indirect expropriation that could be used to challenge public health laws, and using these private ISDS tribunals that operate completely outside of any country's normal legal system. So when you put it all together, you realize this isn't a simple trade deal at all. It's a high-stakes balancing act between two very different and maybe even conflicting visions of the future. So here's the final trade-off. On one side, the potential gains are enormous. A multi-billion-dollar export boost, a level playing field for business, easier mobility. But the risks are just as profound, threatening the world's supply of affordable medicine, limiting a government's power to protect public health, and setting a dangerous precedent for all future trade deals. Ultimately, the debate over this trade deal really boils down to one fundamental and challenging question. As we build this more interconnected global economy, how do we strike the right balance between the pursuit of profit and the protection of patients? It's a question the negotiators in Brussels and New Delhi have to answer, and the whole world is waiting to see what they decide.